pinged by a bunch of people asking me to weigh in on what Ben Shapiro and Matt Walsh had to say about marriage. People were very upset with them, and they also said that their view of marriage is depressing. And I couldn't find the clip for a while, so I didn't cover it last week, but I finally found it, and I have read your comments on the clip, and I think I understand why you're upset. So before I even give you my feedback, let's take a listen to what those two had to say.
Marriage is a social institution, specifically because we have an interest in the bearing and rearing of children. And so essentially what has happened here is that we took a social institution, and then in order to rewrite the social rules, we gutted the social institution in favor of a redefinition of marriage. I think that's the thing people don't understand when they argue about same-sex marriage. What they're really arguing about is the tip of the iceberg, meaning that the redefinition of marriage occurred back in the 60s, 70s, and 80s with no-fault divorce, with the idea of cohabitation. Same-sex marriage is just the final outcome, probably not the final outcome. It is one of the late-term outcomes of a complete redefinition of marriage away from family formation and family structure in favor of what marriage really is about, is just sort of a voluntaristic association that you make with another human being for whatever purposes you serve.
Yeah, I mean, marriage has, you might say 3 pillars, is that it's monogamous, permanent, and procreative, and we gave up on the permanent and monogamous part back decades ago, and so it was only a matter of time before the final pillar falls. This is another thing that came up with Rogan. We were talking about is that he said, well, why don't people have the right to get together and love each other? And who am I to say? Who are we to say who anyone is allowed to love? Well, it's like, yeah, of course you can love whoever you want. There's no laws in place that can prevent you from loving someone. But the question is, why does that matter to society? What interest does society have in that? And why do you need your love for someone to be kind of made official and codified in this way? And I can't think of any reason why that would be needed unless the relationship is fundamentally procreative. And the other side, they can never explain either why exactly it's needed. That's the thing. We say that marriage has been redefined, but it actually hasn't been. It's the what we call the old definition, which is the only definition, has been erased or destroyed, or we've gotten away from that. But there hasn't really been a new definition put in its place. It's the same thing they've done with everything else. Like they got rid of the definition of woman, but what's the new definition? Infamously, they have none. So what is marriage now? If it's not in principle a procreative union and the foundation of the nuclear family, then what is it exactly? And I haven't gotten an answer to that. I don't think there's been an answer provided yet.
All right, so there are a lot of people that are upset with that conversation for a lot of reasons. The first reason is because we tend to inject ourselves, and it's hard not to when you hear something like that. And maybe you're a person that's sitting back and you are married and you are struggling to have children. We talked about infertility earlier, and you're hearing that and you're going, wow, I don't like the way that sounds, because you're basically saying there's no purpose to have a marriage unless you are going to have children. And what about people that are infertile? I get the whataboutism. It makes sense, obviously. I think that fertility struggle is so sad. I have friends that went through it. I have friends that are going through it. People that are trying to get pregnant. It takes them years and they don't know what's wrong. And of course they are in a marriage, but they are aspiring to have children for a reason. I think that is what he's saying, right? You get together, you start a family, like you get married because you want to start a family. Right? A family is what is aspirational, and a family can only come from a mother and a father, right? So you are coming together in union, hoping to have children. Now, the second thing that I'll say to that, and this may be additionally controversial, is that, and you can give me your feedback here, guys, I'm open to it. I do find it really odd when I see a couple and they're married and they're like, we just don't want children. You can actually go back weeks ago. We covered that Reddit feed that I told you guys was really creepy, and it's called Child Free. And there's people that are talking about how happy they are, they don't have children, how they don't want children, and some of them are married, and they just go around and they just laugh at people who have children. There's something maniacal and backwards and wrong to me about that Reddit feed, and maybe I can't exactly explain to you guys why that is eloquently, but I can tell you it just feels wrong when people say, I don't want to procreate, I just want to travel the world and save up all my money and spend money on myself, or when people say I'm too selfish to want children. It's massive red flags to me. It's massive red flags to me. And I often have a lot of questions, and so I'll pose it to you as a question. And I think that's what Matt Walsh is essentially asking you as well. If you don't want to have children, and by the way, let's just separate this argument for those you're going to say, for a tax break, I get that. I actually believe the problem is that marriages were transferred from the church to the government. And now that the government has given tax breaks, it is a sound argument to say, why can't we all have tax breaks or with somebody long term? Remove that. let's talk about the UK when they had domestic partnerships, right? Which allow people to have those same tax breaks without getting married. If you were in a gay relationship, you could aspire toward what was a domestic partnership and you would get the same tax breaks. Outside of the tax legality loopholes, let's say that you could still somehow file your taxes and we had domestic partnerships here. Why do you get married? Why do you get married? Because you want to quote unquote settle down. And what does settling down mean to you? Settle down meaning that you're just going to travel the world with somebody until you're 70. I don't know. Something about it feels wrong to me. And it's probably because I'm a Christian and I believe that marriage is between a man and a woman for the sake of coming together in a union to have a family. And again, I am not speaking to people that are struggling to have a family. And by the way, there's a reason why you call it a fertility struggle, right? Because there's a part of you that knows that like you want to be fertile, you want to have children, and that in and of itself, to me, shows that you realize that is the point of family. That is what family is. You know, there's this. You guys know that When Harry Met Sally is one of my favorite movies, so I'm just going to go ahead and say that again. But I love it. But there's a part of that movie where Sally breaks down crying and she talks about why she got divorced from her husband. And it really resonates with me. I understand this is art and I'm taking it literal, but it really resonated with me when she says, you know, because we said we just wanted to travel the world and at the drop of a hat, we would just be able to get up and we didn't want kids. We would just go to Paris and we would just pick up and we would be able to go to London and we didn't have to worry about kids. And then she said, and then one day I realized that like we never really did go to Paris or go to London or just have sex on the bathroom floor. And we were just in this marriage without children. And it just kind of made her soul die a little as she got older. And I think for women, that happens earlier than it does for men. So if you're a younger man, you can almost excuse yourself from this conversation because men can change their mind when they're 40 and decide to have children, a la George Clooney, and it doesn't make a difference. But I think for young women, that happens sooner, where you start to realize that if you decide you don't want children, it's a very permanent decision. And it does mean that you're not aspiring toward a family, and it does mean that your life in many ways does become about work. And you can think that it's going to be this huge romantic running around forever with your partner. And maybe for some people it is. There's always exceptions to rules, but I like to go with the rules, not the exceptions. If you follow the rules, you can live a life of happiness. If you're constantly trying to look for exceptions to those rules, I don't think that's where you end up. The next portion of the show is available exclusively on Daily Wire Plus only. I'll read those comments, answer your questions. If you're not a member yet, go ahead and click the link in the description and subscribe right now.
Now, that's Candace Owens. I love Candace Owens. She's great. She's a great leader as far as getting the message out. But also, I liked Matt Walsh. I actually went and watched the whole interview, Ben Shapiro on marriage. I mean, I agree. You know, I'm married. I've been married for 8 years. I met my wife when I was 19. You know, we're Christian. And we have 3 beautiful children. You know, we have 2 daughters and a young boy we just had. My son is 10 months now. So that's what marriage is for the traditional conservative Christian. That's what it's about. And I understand infertility. I'm not speaking about infertility because, again, I've had relatives who tried and just haven't been able to procreate. I also have relatives who struggle with it as well and procreated much later. The woman, she was able to procreate much later. It took a lot of time and she had to change certain things up, diet, you know, things like that. But eventually, God blessed her with a child. But that's, I think, marriage is what it's based on, you know, is to come together with your partner and procreate. And the only way to procreate is man and woman. And, you know, no one's telling you how to live your life. You know, but that's what marriage was based and started with, man and woman and procreating. Now, I get it. I'm going to get some people in the comments and people who disagree, and that's perfectly fine. But that's just what I believe. That's what I believe. So, I don't know, guys. How do you feel about it? This isn't to bash people's lifestyles or being gay or anything. I love people. It's not about hate. Let's start there. It's not about hate. And no one's trying to take rights from you. But others have different lifestyles and different opinions as well. That's all we're doing here. But you guys let me know down in the comments, man. I love you guys. Don't forget to like this video, share this video, comment down below, man, how you feel about this video, and also who I should react to next here at Trigger Reactions. And don't forget to turn on your notification bells so you can be notified whenever I upload another video. I love you guys. Thanks again for watching. See you in the next video. Peace.